Have you noticed those days where you feel a little off? Perhaps you have a cold or you're just a little out of sorts, impatient, distracted, or things are stalling out that should be happening smoothly. It's manageable if it happens for a day or a couple of days, but when it starts happening for weeks or longer, we don't realize it, but we're coming out of alignment. We fall out of coherence or harmony within the three main systems that comprise us, and things become harder, crunchier, and more staticky. In this episode, we're going to talk about what coherence is from a frequency work perspective, why coherence is so important for you to feel happy, to feel like things are in flow, and like magic and synchronicity are available to you. And after the discussion, we get to the most important part. The group frequency calibration associated with this episode is where the frequency work happens and where change actually occurs. So be sure to listen to that. Without releasing distortion patterns targeted by the GFC, the change you want will be more difficult to attain because you haven't addressed the root of the issue. If you like this episode, please help us out by hitting the like button and subscribe to receive more powerful content. It helps us get our content to more people like you. My name is Karen Cheong, and today in Mastering Your World Through Frequencies, we're discussing full spectrum coherence.
So we're going to talk about coherence, which sounds kind of strange in this kind of field of work. It doesn't. I get it. But at an individual level, what does it mean to be in coherence?
Yeah. So I think the easiest way to think of coherence is to think of yourself as being in alignment or in harmony with all the aspects of you. Because a lot of times when we're not in coherence, that's when we recognize things like we're not in harmony. So meaning we feel like things are taking a lot more effort, that you feel more stuck, that you can't quite somehow feel like you're at ease in whatever you're trying to accomplish or whatever you're trying to make your way towards. It can feel like sticky, or it can feel like you're chasing time a lot. It can be it just takes a lot of effort to like get things done. It's like the opposite of flow, basically.
Right. Yeah, because I kind of want to tease it apart a lot.
Yeah.
Because when we're incoherence with what?
Yeah.
That's what kind of comes to my mind first off.
Totally.
Incoherence with what?
Yeah, within yourself. So from my perspective, there's like three levels, okay, in terms of yourself, okay, whether you're not you're aware of it. There's the physical aspect of you, which is the physical, mental, emotional aspect of you. There's your spirit body, which is a sphere at arm's length all around you. And between your spirit body and your physical body, and then through your physical body, there's often things that I call distortion patterns, okay, which are basically, it's like static in your field, and it prevents you from having clarity. So it's kind of like you have a bunch of filters. So if you imagine yourself looking at a beautiful, like, ocean view, okay, but then all of a sudden there's this filter that is like, dark brown, and then another filter that is bright red, and then another filter which is like really thick and it distorts distance, and another one that's bright yellow, etc. So by the time you look through the original lens, through all the filters, your view of the ocean is very different because it's been distorted by all that stuff in between.
Yeah.
So that static that I'm referring to between your spirit body and your physical body, and then through your physical body, that creates lack of coherence.
Right. Okay. Wow. That sounds huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when we're out of coherence, like you said, you have these signals.
Yeah.
Life gets hard.
Yeah, life gets really hard.
Basically.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing you don't have any synchronicities really happening, and there's no flow and no kind of inner intuition that's really magnified that says you got to go there.
Yes.
Or you need to look at this book here. Or would that be kind of some stuff that can happen?
And a lot of shoulds. Like I should be doing this and I should be doing that. And there's a feeling of obligation, probably a feeling of overwhelm, of being overstretched, overscheduled, over just too much, you know?
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of permission to have like I think it's going to sound funny even, but like contentment.
Yeah.
You know, just like this ease of being with yourself and this joyfulness in life and being able to notice like the magical synchronicities that are happening around us all the time because you're so consumed with all the crunchiness that's happening from the lack of coherence.
Yeah.
So there's no, like, it just is harder. And it's, to me, much less joyful because you're just like in it. You know, we've all been there where we're in these periods where you're just like, this just freaking sucks. Because, you know, I'm not saying you're never going to experience hardship because people are like, okay, well, now this is like rose-colored glasses. Everything is beautiful. No, it's not about actually not having challenge. It's about when you have the challenge, you actually have a greater perspective. You're able to navigate your way through it. You stay centered in it. You're able to see what your different options are more clearly. So the challenge still exists. I'm not saying the challenge isn't there. It's there. But because you're in coherence, you're able to navigate your way through it more easily. And also with less time because you're not being all bogged down with like, should I, can't I, you know, I can't for this reason. And there's a lot of fear and like all this stuff that other people tell you, you know, like that stuff that slows down your ability to navigate a challenge that shows up for you.
Right. Okay. So when you're working with this and somebody's not in coherence, is it, because it's not distortion pattern we're talking about here, is it? So how does the work benefit or how does the work pull somebody back into coherence?
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's what happens.
Yeah, exactly. So what happens is the focus of frequency work is to bring you back into your center and also to raise your frequency resonance, right? We talked about this, you and I, many times before. And part of the way that you do that is to release your distortion patterns because naturally as that starts to happen, you raise in your vibrational level and also you cultivate this inner strength because you're coming back into your center, coming back into your center. Yes? You and I have talked about this before. So what you're asking is, okay, what's the difference between clarifying your distortion, raising your vibration and coming into your center, and coherence? Coherence is the alignment that adds to that feeling or the experience of all that stuff coming back into your center and rising in your resonance. It makes it more smooth. It makes it more efficient. It makes it more, not, I guess I would say easy feeling because it's like you've had your back out of alignment. So have you ever thrown out your back?
Yeah.
Right? Everything in your life feels harder because there's more pain, right? In, I don't know, putting on your pants, right? Or even sitting at your desk to do work or getting a meal ready.
Yeah.
But when you go to a chiropractor and your back comes physically into alignment, even though it might still be sore, you're able to do those things more easily.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
So life doesn't feel so terrible when you're doing it. Okay. So that's the piece that coherence is. It makes things feel like, okay.
It's a challenge, but I can do this.
Yeah. It's like more manageable. I have more space to like have more of an experience other than this is just kind of like crunchy and painful. You know what I mean? I can find my center better. I have an ability to be aware of my brilliance more, right? Because I'm more in my own alignment, let's just call it, or coherence.
And perhaps would it be easier as well to have the awareness? Like oftentimes when the coherence is a bit sketchy, the awareness goes as well of the triggers of you know habitual patterns that you really should be letting go of. You're starting to default to. Is coherence a bit like that as well? That when you're in coherence, you can catch them faster. We're not going to get there.
Exactly.
Come on.
Exactly. And the more you're in coherence, the more you're able to do the things like raise in your vibration. The more you're able to be aware of the perspective that I call the big S self that you and I have talked about before, which is the perspective of you that is infinite indestructible consciousness, this aspect of you that is that. I'm not saying you're not also human. You are, but you also have this other aspect to you. And so because you're more in coherence, you're more open to having that experience, that perspective, that awareness, because you're in alignment. Because otherwise you get stuck in what, you know, we were talking about, which is the little S self perspective, that perspective of the ego mind of it's like you're only trying to put like one foot in front of the other and like everything's sort of narrowed into like this like kind of very dense, very limited perspective of the world. Hi guys, I hope you're loving our conversation. Our discussions are designed to empower you to transform your life and the lives of the people around you. So please hit the subscribe button because it helps us to expand our reach and to empower more people. Okay, let's get back to it.
I'm a person that is listening to this and realizes in this moment in time, I am out of coherence, clearly, because all the examples that I've heard, and I want to get back into coherence and I want to do it now.
Yeah.
So, like, what can I do?
Yeah. So the most thorough way to do that is something that I call full spectrum coherence mastery, which is a program I gave specifically to empower people to come into coherence themselves. So there's actually 3 modules.
Yeah.
The first one is just clearing enough of the distortion patterns so that you can start to know when you're not in coherence. Because a lot of people don't even know that you're not in coherence, right? You're just like, oh God, life
just life.
It's life sucks and I'm trying to deal with it. And you feel like that's all I can do is like, all I can do is deal with it, right? But what happens when you start to release the distortion patterns in module 1, you start to have distance from your life a little bit in the sense that not that you're like apathetic and you don't care, but more like you have a greater perspective.
Yeah.
And then in module 2, it's all about, okay, well, how do you accelerate your momentum? Because now you have this perspective of life, you're more and more in coherence. How do you really take off? And that is module 2. And in module 3, it's about how do you really now learn the skill set to be able to bring yourself back into coherence when you're not, and also how to accelerate yourself. So that I felt like I needed to give a course that was complete in the sense of how do you do all those things?
Yeah.
Do you know?
For yourself.
For yourself.
By yourself.
Yeah, without having to rely on Karen. And so, the structure of it is actually, there is a lot of structure to it, meaning that in the 3 modules, there are lessons. There's always going to be me talking about something specific.
Yeah.
It's in a very specific order.
Yeah.
And then after me laying it out very clearly, there's going to be a group frequency calibration so that you can do the work to release the distortion patterns that
We're talking at the frequency level.
Yeah,
now.
the frequency level, that keep you in that same pattern over and over.
Yeah.
So you can release that. And then I also give very practical tips that you can do for yourself to accelerate yourself, to, not only release more of your distortion, but to notice where it is in your world and to empower yourself so that you know how it is to get out of that space that is very not good feeling of that lack of coherence.
Okay. And that's every lesson you do?
Every lesson, yeah.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So you have tons of tools.
And how long does that course last for?
Yeah, so if you want to do the entire class, it's a year long.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so what you do, I know, that might be intimidating for some people and awesome for others. And some people really like it because there's a class every week for 3 weeks of the month.
Oh, yeah.
And then a week to integrate. And some people use that time to go back and listen to whatever it is that they had was a sticky point, whatever. And the feedback we've had is that people love it because it's something they get to do every week that's for them.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be like stationary at your desk looking at the thing. I mean, you could have your earbuds in and gardening and listening to the lesson, right? Or you could be, I don't know, walking your dogs or whatever the thing is. So you don't have to be like static and like having to put aside all this time. You can do it and do something else and just listen to it and then do the GFC, either moving or paying attention to. But you don't, I think a lot of people hear the year long and they think, oh my God, but each lesson is about an hour or less. So it's very like, if you are doing it and doing something else at the same time, if that's your thing. Like some people cook and listen to it, some people work out and listen to it, some people just watch it. So especially for those things that are harder for you, that that where you find the most challenge, that is something that is really available to a lot of people, and that's why we give that extra week of rest.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I want to go back and listen to that thing that I kind of had a harder time with.
Yeah, and it's once a week. It's not like every day for
No.
a week. It's
No. It's once a week. Yeah.
Yeah, and do you, what if people have questions?
Yeah. So we offer something really special for Coherence Mastery, which is it's the only place where I do a live Q&A every 2 months.
Oh, yeah.
And anybody who has questions, they can hop online and they get to ask me those questions live in real time.
Wow.
The only place I do that is in the Limitless Potential Mastermind, which is our most advanced mastermind, and when we're giving live retreats. So it's an opportunity to get to ask me questions, and a lot of people find those question and answer periods really helpful.
Wow, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this coherence thing clearly takes quite a bit of time and commitment to, get a hold of and to master. So there has to be a relevance for it. Why is it so relevant to us?
Yeah, because it creates ease and smoothness and flow in life, and it can feel really hard without it. And if you really want spiritual awakening, if you really want to access abundance in a way that you haven't before, and I'm not talking about just money, because money, yes, and other things, whether it's connection or intuition or just magic, whatever the thing is for you, if you want to experience more of really the brilliance of life, you have to be in coherence. Because if you're not, just like that back example that we mentioned, you know, if your back is out, it doesn't feel very good. Even if it's not like you're not like lying on the floor in pain and like, oh my God, I can't move.
Yeah.
Even if it's just sore, it's going to bother you.
Yeah.
It's the same with coherence. So the thing is, if you can, you can go along in life being out of coherence. You can. Many people slog through their days and muscle through.
Oh, yeah. And most of them would just say, oh, it's just life.
It's just life, or I'm getting older and it's life, or whatever. But it doesn't have to be limited to that. And the thing is, if you want to experience like life in a way that you know that you can transcend the challenge and that it's there for you to grow from, and that there's this amazing opportunity in living life, and that it's really there for you, that's a really different perspective than I got to get through it.
Yeah.
And so coherence is what leads to that perspective, and it's what gives you that perspective. So it kind of depends on what you want to experience, I'd say.
Yeah. Okay, so with all that said,
yeah,
what on earth can you do for us with this GFC?
Yeah.
I know that because it takes time, and you've got a whole course designed for this.
Yeah.
So what can you do in this little time that we have for the GFC?
Yeah. So what I will do in this GFC is I'll help you become aware of that you're not in coherence. And I think that for people, they'll be like, I don't really want that because I feel like I experience that every day.
Yeah.
But the thing is, when you start to get clarity with that you're not in coherence, you're like, wait a minute. I know what this is what you talked about. You know, it's not just me, and it's not just life, and it's not just like I'm screwing things up or I expect to fail or whatever. It's actually, wait a minute, this is actually me not being in coherence. So I think that's an important distinction, and to pull you more into coherence, even if it's just for a little bit. So you can start to feel what that feels like.
Okay.
So that's what we're going to do in the GFC.
That sounds cool. Let's do it. Come on.
So for those of you who would like to have more clarity when you're out of coherence and to experience a little bit of what it's like when you're more in coherence, then I highly recommend listening to the group frequency calibration associated with this episode. And if you know someone who would like to hear this, please share this episode with them. We're about to start the group frequency calibration, or GFC, where we actually do the frequency work and change is catalyzed. To get to the GFC, click on the square that'll appear on the right or the link in the description below. It's time to bring in a new experience, a new consciousness, and a new world. Let's rise together.